Hey there, welcome back to our channel. Let's continue with our series. So in this section, we're going to work on our cart and orders. So in the previous episode, we have covered how we can create our profile, and finally we have patched out our profile, and we can see we are getting all the profile related data along with the address as well as in the while we're getting our profile. The similar way we are going to incorporate our cart and the orders as well as. But before that, we need to make some cart and order data first, right? So in this case, let's try to spin our server. Then we're going to jump into the Postman. So we can make some calls. We can create a couple of data. Then we will move forward accordingly. All right, so here in this application, let's go to the terminal. Then let's try to run the server by calling make server, right? And you can see the server spinning and it's port in 9000. So let's try to minimize this one here. All right, so here in the Postman, let's try to log in. All right, so here I'm going here inside this user service, go to user login, and I'm doing the login by using my user ID and password. Right. So you can see login is successful. Now what we are going to do, like we're going to get the profile, right? So as at least we can see like what are the profile informations we have. That is already we did in our past the episode. And then what we can do, let's go to our product service. So inside the product service categories, like inside the product service, now let's go to our product service. So let's close it out all this first. And inside this product service, right? And we can see the get product routes is here. So let's try to click on the get products, right? And we can see these are the items, product items are listed right here. So one of the product item we are going to add to the cart, right? So that is already, if you see in the source code, then here, let's try to minimize this one. And user handler, not the user handler mostly. Maybe, yeah, it can be available in user handler. Yeah, cart. Can you see add to cart and get cart? So these are the two endpoints we're going to use to add to cart, right? To add to cart, what are the information is going to be needed? So you can see the cart request, right? So we can see the product ID and the quantity is going to be needed, right? So we need to provide the product ID and quantity. So here, in the add to cart functionality, if you see to the user service inside somewhere here, yes, this is the create cart, right? So here inside this create cart, you can see as a request we're sending it out the product ID and the quantity. So what are the products are available? Let's go to the products, and you can, yeah, the product ID 8 is available, right? So let's go to the create cart, and product ID 8 and quantity is, let's say, 1, right? For a while we're going to add 1. So let's try to send this request. So now we can see this returning some kind of data, right? So whole product information that is returning it. All right, so now let's try to increase the quantity. Right now we can see this product ID has already the quantity is like 1, right? So let's try to update this quantity. So we know this product is already exist in the cart. Let's try to update it to 3, right? So technically this quantity has to become 3. Now can you see quantity is 3, right? So create cart is perfect, right? But how we can get the cart, right? Let's go to the source code here, right? So here, if we see, there is a kind of one more call that is we can use to get the cart. As I said, there are 2 endpoints we have used to get cart, right? So let's try to use that one. This is the create cart and get cart items, right? So user cart, yeah. This is the endpoints we are going to use for getting the cart details. So you can see the similar data we are getting it back, right? So let's try to add one more. Let's say get to the product details here. So let's go to create cart once again, and here product ID will be 9, and let's say product quantity will be, let's say, 2, right? Then let's try to click to send. Now we can see it is returning back the product items. There are 2 items, right? And if you go to the get cart items also, this is going to return the same data. You can see we have the 2 items. So now we can see our cart details are working, right? So we can get the data back and we can create the cart, right? And somehow we can incorporate all these cart details to our profile as well. So while you're going to patch it out, the user profile, as an example, this user profile, you can see only it is giving the address, right? So maybe we can incorporate this cart and order details also, right? So this is the way maybe we can patch it out all the relevant data for that particular user. So what is the next step? Next step is to create the order, right? So somehow we need to create the order. So how we can do that? Let's go again to the source code. You can see we have 2 more URL, 2 more endpoints we have added. One is called get order, right? and orders, and another one is the get order, right? So these are the two endpoints, one's for getting the orders and another one is like getting the order by ID, right? But somehow we need to create the order as well as, right? So let's try to cover that out. All right, so here we are going to add one more endpoint that is going to be responsible for creating our orders, right? So this is the same way like PPT order routes, right? PPT routes post order and handle create order. So let's go to the handler because already we have created this function somewhere. Maybe we forgot to add this endpoint right here for order, right? So let's go to the create order, and you can see it is not returning anything. Simple, it is saying like create order. So let's try to put some code right here together to create the order. Then we're going to handle the get orders and get order by ID. To creating the order, let's try to grab a couple of pieces of the code, right? So this is what we need to do. We need to grab our authenticated user first. So in this case, user will be our authenticated user. This is going to be like handler service auth.get current user, right? This is what we do. Now we have our authenticated user. Now what we are going to do, we are going to create our order, right, in our service. So in this case, like order reference number, right? And error will be our handler service.create order. So here order reference and error are not being used, right? So let's try to use one by one. So first of all, we will check like if error is not equal nil, right? Not equal nil, then definitely we need to show some kind of error. So in this case, let's say rest internal error, right? This is the way maybe we have added the errors, right? You can see rest internal error. The similar way we're gonna say like that, but we're not going to throw this particular error. So what we can say like error new, right? We will be saying unable to create order. Okay. So whatever the reason that is, we are going to tackle it, right? This error we need to capture it, or maybe we need to log it, right? That is we are going to handle in our logging part. Now we have our order reference number. So let's try to send a kind of meaningful message right there. So now we have our status. So we set order create order. We can say order created successfully, and order reference number we can just pass it on from here. Right? Cool. So handler section is handled, right? So create order is handled. Now let's go to our this create order function to the our user service. If you go to the user service here, you can see we have no any kind of data right here, or because we need to add some kind of codes to cover this functionality. So let's try to cover this functionality together. So in this case, we will do step by step. First of all, we will say define card items for the user. All right. So whatever the card items we have added to the user. So if you can see in this Postman, we can get to know, like, if you go to this get card items, we are right. So we are on the right window. So here, these are the items we need to find it out from that user, right? So this is the way, because as you can see, while we are just creating the order, we are sending it out our user reference here, right? So this user, we need to find it out all the card items, all the saved card items first, right? Then we need to find out the success payment, right? So find success payment reference status, right? So because while we're going to create the order beforehand, we need to collect the payment, right? Then we're going to create the order. So this step also we need to cover. So as of now, what we can do, let's say we're going to add some kind of data right there. As an example, payment ID will be a kind of string, definitely. All right. As an example, pay 1 2 3 4 5. Definitely this ID. This is not a kind of valid ID. We will be accept this ID from our payment provider. So whatever the payment gateway, payment provider we're going to integrate, that payment ID will be received from there. So this is going to be a kind of key parameter that is going to help us to find out the successful payment in our payment dashboard as well as in our order as well as, right? Next things we need to do, like a transaction ID, all right? TXN ID, right? So this transaction ID will be something like this. So this transaction ID is going to be needed for our user. This is we are not going to expose to the user, right? And this is we are going to expose to the user. This is, you can say, another word order ID as well, right? Or maybe unique like transaction ID that is widely we are going to use for tracking that particular payment. Payment ID is a different one, transaction ID is a different one. Payment ID is going to be internally used for the payment provider and the order, but transaction ID, user can see the transaction ID as well, right? So this is what we are going to expose to the user. The order reference ID, order reference ID, right? So this is going to be another ID that is maybe most of the time it's going to be numeric, right? We're not going to use the string, this one like this hard coded. So let's try to use some kind of like maybe method that is going to help us to create the random order ID, because this order ID going to be produced from different places, right? So let's try to keep it in one place maybe, but just for sake of information, this order reference number is a kind of number that is customer always going to refer to that particular order, right? So we are not bother for our serial number that is going to save or stored in our database, right? So customer don't know about the serial number. Customer only know about that my order number is like 1 2 3 4 5 or maybe something like that. So in this case, let's try to create one helper function that is going to generate one random number for us, let's say, right? So we could have done this one right here, but it's safer side to keep it somewhere. So here inside this helper, you can see we have auth and utility, right? So let's go to utility, and you can see we have already one function we have created, right? That is called random numbers, right? That random numbers, if you have not created this one, let me make sure like you need to add all these codes. So let me make you understand what we are doing right here. So we are just simply creating some numbers, right? Random numbers 1 2 2 0, right? And we are making a buffer, right? So we are making a kind of array of buffer, and we are setting a kind of length and how much length we need to have the order number, randomly generated number, that is we can define here. And finally, we are just like reading this buffer from this buffer, right? And we are checking it out whether if we have any error, return the error. We are not going to generate that number. And after that, we're just like number length. That number, we are just creating one number length from the numbers, right? These are the numbers, and we're adding to the buffer because we have a limited buffer. That is, the length will be like maybe 6, maybe 7 or 8, whatever. Then we're adding all this like you can say random numbers. You can see we are randomizing the number, like we are using the modulo operator in terms of the finding out the particular number from there, and we are adding all this you can say random numbers to the buffer, right? That particular location. Finally, we are returning that the string buffer as a kind of number. You can see we are returning this number here, right? So let's try to use this random numbers function right here, right? So here, so instead of this, what we are going to do, we are going to say helpers, or maybe I can directly use this one, random numbers, helper.random numbers, right? So here we can send the length. As an example, I'm interested to sending the number 8, right? And here we are not caring about the error, because this is what it has to generate the order numbers per sure, right? Now this part is done, right? And first part, we need to find all the card items. So we are going to add some code quickly right there. Then what we need to do, we need to create the order here, right? So here we're going to say create order, right? And create order, and with generated with order number, right? This order number, this order reference. And once that is done, right? So once that is done, we need to send the email as well as send email to user of user with the order details, right? So it can be minimalistic order information we are going to send. And then in the next page is like once the order has been placed, right? So we need to empty the cart stuff, right? So here we're going to do like remove card items from the cart, right? And finally return the order number. So that is these are the steps we are going to cover, right? So let's try to do one by one all the steps. Then in the first step, let's try to grab all the items from our user, right? So in this case, items and error, and we're gonna say like service.repo and find card items by user.id, this user and ID, right? So here we will check like if we have any kind of error, right? So if we have any kind of error, then just like to return 0 and error. I'm gonna say like error on the finding card items, right? This is really cool. All right, so this error only going to be valid, only going to cover while we are finding the card items, right? And if you're encountering any kind of error during this operation, then only it's going to throw the error. What if this find card items is succeeded, right? Then items will be 0. Then again it will try to create the order. So that is what we don't want, right? So what we need to do, we need to have another check, like if all right, if we are going to say len, right, len of items, right, items, this is not maybe it's less than 1 or maybe equal to 0, right, to be precise. Then what we can say, the return 0 and the card is empty, right? Card is empty, card is empty, cannot create the order, cannot create the order, right? So this case is also covered. Like if we have only items, then only we are able to proceed further, right? Otherwise we are not going to proceed further. That is what we can do. Now we have our payment ID, right? This is we are going to cover it shortly. Like while we are going to integrate our payment gateway, then we will be going to conjugate this payment ID right there, right? Along with this transaction ID as well as. So these are the two items. It will going to come from our payment make payment feature, right? Then order reference ID. This is really cool. So that is we are going to use it. But before that, what we need to do? We need to use the amount as well as we need to check like what are the amounts we need to we are having here, right? All right, so now we have our second step where we are creating all the essential informations, right? So this payment ID and transaction ID, it will come from our payment gateway. While we're going to integrate our payment gateway with Go, then definitely we can capture all these things from there, right? And order reference number, this is really cool. We are getting it from our random numbers, right? Now the third step, the first step covered, second step covered, and the third step. So right before creating the order, we need to introduce our create order model, right? So you can see like we have our cart, right? This is really it's cool. But you might have remember while we visited our data structure, then definitely we need to have the order along with the order items as well as. That is we need to consider, right? Because at any point of time, while user are going to visit our right from here, let's say if you go to our this endpoints, get orders, all right, get order by IDs, then we not only need to return the order, we need to return the order items as well as. So what are the items user has been ordered for that particular order ID? That is we need to send it back, right? So in that case, what we need to do, we need to keep store all the cart items, whatever the items he has added to the cart, that is we need to store in the per order as well as. So there is a kind of like connections between these order items and the order, right? So what we are going to do, we're going to create the order and we're going to shift all these items, right, to these cart items to our order items as well as. So at least he can see in Pusar like, hey, these items are belongs to this order, right? Find by that particular order ID, then it will going to give all the relevant informations. So let's try to do that quickly. So inside the domain, right, what we are going to do, we are going to create two files. One is like going to be order, all right, order.go, right, and another one is right order item, order item.go. All right. So in the order, let's try to add some code quickly. So in the order, type order will be struct. And here we are going to add all the relevant informations of the order. The first of all going to be ID. Then there's a kind of incorporations going to be needed for this order. That is going to be our user ID, right? Then there's a kind of status also needed, right? Then amount also needed, right? So status can be like it's in progress or maybe on the way, delivered, or whatever the status we can update right there from admin side. Amount will be needed. Then transaction ID, as I said, the transaction ID is essentially it's required for the customers. All right. And then order reference number. This is the order reference number. We're going to expose the publicly, so user can find all the orders by this order reference number, not by the serial number of the database. Then the payment ID that is internally going to be used by the admin, right, to keep track of the payment and refund and etc. Then finally items, all right? So I'm just adding these things for a while. Maybe we are going to create this order items shortly. Then lastly created and updated ad. So these are the two things we're going to be keep track of, like when this order has been modified, right? Because we're not going to modify everything, but maybe order can be canceled or the status, at least the status can be updated, right? Now let's go to here. I'm gonna save this one, all right? Let's go to the order items. So here in the order items, we're going to create this order item struct quickly. And this is pretty much similar, just like our cart items, right? So type order item struct, right? So here definitely ID is going to be needed. Then order ID, this incorporation is going to be needed because the order, you can see if you go to order, we have this incorporation, right? Items will be our order items. So this is going to be one order can have a multiple orders. So that is what we are defining right here. That's why we need to keep this these incorporations. Maybe already I have explained how this one-to-many like basic the incorporations are happening, right? Relations are happening in our previous episodes for our user and the address. And now essentially the product ID is going to be needed. That's true, because each order item can have the product ID. So that product ID can be something else that is being stored in our catalog. So at least at any point of time, maybe we can go back and see the relevant information that is not being stored in the order items. That is what we can do. And then definitely it's a kind of like a name is needed. So then image URL that's needed, seller ID is needed, right? And then the price is going to be needed, and the quantity is needed. And then what else? Like, created at maybe, right? Then another thing is going to be updated at, right? So these are all the informations are really helpful. So let's go to here in the maybe cart. Let's see, the seller ID is cool, price, quantity, all of the informations we have added right there in the order item. So you might have thinking like, why we are replicating the same thing that is already been stored right there in our catalog. So you can say this product ID already we are storing, that is enough, right? Let me tell you why. Because sometimes what happens, product can have versions, right? So this is kind of a really big picture, right? This is I'm not saying like we need to introduce right now this product version. Each product can have a different version, right? And that product version can have like, maybe upgrade. Let's say you are going to buy one iPhone, right? In 2024, let's say, right? And in the 2024, the iPhone is not exactly the same iPhone just like 2025, right? This is a kind of really kind of new version, right? And that version can have a different name, different maybe image or different price, right? Quantity is going to be same, but some of the informations we cannot like rely on the directly the product ID. So that's why we are storing the minimalistic informations right here. So at least customer can review his order, and then that product informations will be always available, right? Though we have the updated product ID informations right there, but still some of the informations that is quickly can be available. That is what we are doing right here. So you will understand this scenario, this strategy while we are going to convert these things to microservice way, right? So there is a kind of like, we are going to introduce the bounded context, where each context will be responsible for certain data to just keep and minimize the redundancy, right? So we don't want to deviate, all right? So maybe later stage we are going to discuss widely. So this order item is really cool. Right now it's done, and order also going to be okay. So let's go to our server file, maybe where we are using in the entry, right? Go to main, and here we can see the start server. Because this is a kind of model, right? So this is it. We need to create these models in our database, right? So that is what we do. So let's go here. Let's close our server. We don't wanna interrupt our server execution for a while. And here, right after the cart, let's try to create our all the models here just for migrations, right? So already we have created. We need to add it here. So order item and the domain order. So these are the two things we are going to incorporate there, right? So now, as soon as we are running the application, it will going to create our migrations, right? So only one more model we need to add maybe in future. That is going to be our payment. That is also we are going to introduce, right? While we're gonna integrate our payment gateway. Long story short, we have just added the migrations tables right here for auto migration. So let's close the server file. Let's go to our user service once again. So now we can fairly move forward with all this step. So here in the create order step, let's try to add some code quickly. So one by one. First of all, we need the amount, because each and every order has the amount, right? So that amount we need to create it just like per amount will be float 64. Then we need to have our order item. So you can see like we have created our order item and it's automatically imported, right? Now somehow we need to inject all the items to our order items. So that is what we need to do. So in this case, we are going to go, we are going to look through one loop, that is all the items, we will figure it out from there. So this is going to be like for item range of the items, that is already, we have added all these things right here. Or maybe we can say like card items, right? This is going to be a little bit meaningful. Card items, right? So let's try to rename this one as well as this one as well as. All right, so inside here, we will say like order item, all right? First of all, let's try to add the amount, item price, float 64, item quantity. So whatever the, in this card, whatever the quantity we have, the item price into quantity, we can get the amount per, right? Then we're just adding this amount to the card order, right? So, and finally, we are just like, creating one order item model where we are pushing this product ID, quantity, price, then a couple of more things going to be needed. This is going to be like a name, let's say name will be item name. Then what else? Like image URL going to be image URL, then seller ID will be item seller ID. Then I think price already we have added, and the quantity. All right, so everything has been added. We have the product ID, we have the quantity, we have the price, right? And we have the name, image URL, seller ID. So these are all only needed. Cool. So now our order items are ready, right? We are fairly go ahead and create the order, right? And now, once we have created the order, then definitely what we need to do, we need to create one kind of like a model that is going to be order model, right? This order model. An order model can have our user ID, and second the order number reference. All right, so this is going to be why it says order number, or maybe we can say payment ID, and payment ID will be our payment ID, definitely. Then we can say transaction ID will be our transaction ID, and this is going to be UINT. So what we can do, let's go to our order model. And let's try to change, because this is really wrong. Transaction ID should not supposed to be UINT, it has to be string, because it can come from any form of like a string, right? Order number it's fine, because it has to be UINT, right? Because it cannot be have like UINT. It cannot have the negative number. That's why we need to add this UINT, right? Unsigned UINT. Unsigned integer. And now this is cool. Like let's go to our user service. Maybe we can remove this UINT from here, right? Then we have our user ID, payment ID, transaction ID, and order reference number will be our order reference, and definitely we need to cast it UINT. All right. Then order number is fine. Then amount we need to use like that, right? Then finally, the items, order items, we need to pass it on, right? So here, our order model is ready, but still you can add some more informations, whatever you think like the order model has to be present right there. As an example, the payment method, payment type, etc. But keep in mind, we cannot store the card number, right? Because to storing the card number in your application, that is going to be needed some of the compliance, right? So payment compliance, that is we are going to discuss about while we're going to integrate our payment gateway. But so far it's cool. Like we have our order model. So let's try to create our order, right? So here only we care about the error, right? Then we are gonna say as the repo create order. So I think create order doesn't exist right now, right? So let's go to our repository and try to work on this create order first, right? Then we're going to cover rest of all, and then we're going to accomplish the create order functionality. All right. So here in the repository, let's go on the top. In the repository, user repository. So here we have our card functionality where we are just creating our card, right? So here, right before the profile, let's try to add our order. So while we are adding the order right before profile, because profile is totally different component, right? So card and order can be stay close to each other. So here in the order, let's try to add some code quickly. This is going to be like create order, right? So create order, where create order, and we'll be saying order domain, right? Then only this function is going to be needed. Then we will say pine orders, right? Then pine orders will accept one parameter that is going to be like user ID, and it'll return the bunch of orders, right? It's a kind of form of array, and next parameter will be our error. Then pine order by ID, this is also similar, but this time we're returning only one order ID, right? So I think in this case, pine order by ID, this user ID is not required at all, right? Or we can find it out as well as, but let's try to only just to keep this order ID, right? Not the user. Cool. Now let's try to implement all these things to our user repository. Then here in the bottom side, yeah, here, and we're gonna say like implement missing methods, right? So I would like to move this function on the bottom. So here, new user repository. Okay, let's try to go ahead, cut this one, and we're gonna just like add it right there. Here, new user repository to create the new user repository. I'm just like leaving it one kind of message, one kind of comments right here, so it's going to be like easily identify the place where we can just directly replace or directly import the functions underneath of this file. Cool. So now let's try to add all the functions, all the codes right here for create, find, and the find order by ID shortly.